The bitter Montana wind cut through the darkness like a knife, carrying snowflakes that danced beneath the dim streetlights of Pinecrest. Mason Sullivan pulled his sheepskin coat tighter as he climbed into his Ford F-150, keys jingling in his calloused hand. Christmas Eve, another lonely holiday in a string of 3 years spent as nothing more than a ghost inhabiting his own life. The Sullivan Ranch had been in his family for generations, passed down from his grandfather to his father, and finally to him. But the name meant little now, not since he'd lost Andrew, not since his parents had turned their backs when he'd finally spoken his truth. Mason was just heading home after picking up last-minute supplies, a welcome excuse to escape the emptiness of his ranch house. But as he drove past the row of shops bordering Main Street, something caught his eye. A figure near the dumpsters behind the general store, moving slowly, methodically. Mason squinted through the falling snow, his breath fogging the window. At first, he thought it might be a stray dog, but as he pulled over and his headlights illuminated the scene, his heart nearly stopped. It was a young man, no more than 18, methodically searching through the garbage. His thin fingers, red and trembling from the cold, picked through empty food containers with the practiced efficiency of someone who had done this before. He wore a tattered, patched-up sweater that looked wholly inadequate against the biting Montana winter. Even in this desperate moment, a small rainbow pin remained affixed to his collar, a quiet act of defiance. Mason's feet moved before his mind could process what he was seeing. "Hey there, he called softly, his voice a low baritone, not wanting to startle the boy. The young man's head snapped up, his wide green eyes filled with terror and defiance. He clutched a partially eaten sandwich against his chest, ready to bolt. "It's okay," Mason said, raising his hand slowly, palms open. "I'm not going to hurt you." The teen remained frozen, studying Mason's weathered face beneath the brim of his cowboy hat. His expression was guarded with the weariness of someone much older than his years. "What's your name, kid?" Mason asked gently. After what felt like forever, the boy whispered, "Noah Reynolds." "Noah," Mason repeated, taking a careful step closer. "I'm Mason." He knelt slightly, trying to appear less intimidating, his heart aching at the sight of this young man alone in the freezing night. "Are you looking for something specific?" Noah's grip on the sandwich tightened. "Food," he admitted, his voice barely audible above the wind. The word hit Mason like a punch to the gut. No one should be searching for food in a dumpster, not on Christmas Eve, not ever. "Where are your folks, Noah?" The question seemed to drain whatever color remained in Noah's cheeks. His bottom lip trembled as he looked down at the snow-covered ground. "I don't have any," he said, his voice cracking. "Not anymore, my dad's a Baptist minister in Portland. He found texts between me and my boyfriend. Said no son of his would be gay under his roof." Mason felt something twist painfully in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. The instinct to protect, to care for another soul, and maybe, just maybe, to save himself in the process. Have you ever wondered how a single moment of kindness can change 2 lives forever? Follow Heart Stories for more tales of courage, healing, and unexpected love that remind us we're never truly alone, even in our darkest hours. The Sullivan Ranch house stood silhouetted against the Montana night sky, snowflakes swirling around its sturdy frame. Mason pulled his truck into the driveway, acutely aware of Noah sitting beside him, clutching his small backpack like it contained his entire world. Perhaps it did. "It's not much," Mason said as he unlocked the front door, "but it's warm." The house was modest but clean, functional but sterile. No pictures on the walls, no personal touches, nothing that spoke of the life Mason had once imagined building. Only a single photograph lay face down on the mantel, the memory of Andrew too painful to face, yet too precious to discard. Noah tied inside, his eyes widening at the simple warmth of central heating. Through the eyes of someone who had nothing, Mason's nothing suddenly felt like something. "Let me run you a shower," Mason said, heading toward the bathroom. "You must be frozen through." As the water heated up, Mason gathered some clothes for Noah, a soft t-shirt, clean socks, flannel pajama pants with a drawstring that could be tightened. While Noah showered, Mason heated up homemade chili con carne and cornbread from the freezer. Simple food, but warm and filling. When Noah emerged from the bathroom, looking slightly lost in Mason's clothes, his hair clean and his cheeks pink from the hot water, he looked like a completely different person, still thin, still weary, but human again. He ate quietly, carefully, as if afraid the food might disappear. "There's more," Mason said gently. "You can have as much as you want." Noah's eyes filled with tears. Really? The simple question broke something in Mason's heart. That night, after setting up the guest room, Mason made a call. The bedroom door was closed, but Noah, unable to sleep, crept into the hallway, drawn by the low murmur of Mason's voice. "Mark, I need your help," Mason was saying. "It's Christmas, and I've got a situation." Mark's voice crackled through the speakerphone. "Mason Sullivan, it's been almost a year since you called. What's going on?" Mason explained Noah's situation, his voice growing more determined with each word. "He's 18, kicked out for being gay. No place to go. I can't just send him back out there. This is a lot." "Mason," Mark said carefully, you haven't exactly been social since Daniel. Taking in a traumatized kid isn't something to do on impulse." "Why not?" Mason asked, his voice firm. "This kid has been failed by everyone who was supposed to protect him. I won't be another person who walks away." There was silence on the other end of the line. "Are you sure about this? It's been 3 years since Andrew, and you've been pretty isolated." "I know what it's going to be, Tess," Mason interrupted. "Maybe that's exactly why I can help him. We both know what it's like to lose everything." When Mason hung up the phone and he found Noah standing in the doorway, tears streaming down his face. "You're really letting me stay," he whispered as if he couldn't believe it. "Of course I am," Mason said, his heart clenching. "I told you I wasn't going anywhere." The days that followed brought challenges neither had anticipated. One night, Noah woke up screaming, trapped in a nightmare where his father's face contorted with hatred, his mother's silent tears, his older brother Josh standing by with cold judgment. Mason sat with him until the terror passed, making him tea and reminding him that he was safe. Other times, Mason would discover food hidden in Noah's room: granola bars, apples, crackers hoarded for the day when he expected to be cast out again. With infinite patience, Mason reassured him that the kitchen was always open, that there would always be more. Their first true challenge from the outside came barely a week after Noah arrived. Mason was loading the supplies at Thompson's general store when Frank Thompson cornered him by the register. "Heard you took in that gay boy from Portland," he said, voice low but cutting. "People are talking. Sullivan." Mason kept his face neutral. "People always talk. Frank, not much else to do in winter. Well, I've got plenty of customers who don't much like the idea of buying cattle from a ranch that's becoming known for that sort of thing." Frank's smile didn't reach his eyes. Mason felt a familiar anger rise within him, the same he'd felt when his parents had turned their backs on him after learning he was gay. He'd been quiet then, ashamed, but not now. "Then they can buy inferior beef elsewhere," he said calmly, taking his change. "Merry Christmas, Frank." As he drove home, Mason realized something had shifted. The wall he'd built around his heart after Andrew died had developed a crack. And through it, a sliver of the old Mason, the one who stood his ground, the one who lived rather than merely existed, had returned. That evening, their neighbor Bill Parker, a Vietnam veteran in his 70s, stopped by with fresh-baked bread. "Saw the boy helping with the horses today," he said, nodding toward Noah, who was setting the table for dinner. "Seems like a good kid." "He is," Mason replied, accepting the bread. Bill cleared his throat. "Just so you know, Tom and we've been roommates for 40 years now. If either of you need anything, our door's always open." Mason stared at his neighbor in surprise. In all these years, Bill had never openly acknowledged his relationship with Tom. As Bill left, Mason understood in offering Noah shelter. He had inadvertently created a space where others felt safe to reveal their own truths as well. January melted into February, and with it came a quiet routine at Sullivan Ranch. Each morning, Mason would wake before dawn, start the coffee, and head out to tend to the horses. Often, he'd find Noah already in the stables, speaking softly to Thunder, the most temperamental stallion on the property. Somehow, the skittish horse that had bucked off even experienced ranch hands responded to Noah's gentle touch. "How do you do that?" Mason asked one morning, leaning against the stable door. Noah shrugged, his hands smoothly brushing Thunder's mane. "I just talk to him like he matters, like what he feels is important." The words hung in the air, carrying weight far beyond horse whispering. As snow blanketed Big Sky County, Noah transformed from the frightened boy Mason had found behind the dumpster. He gained weight, his face filled out, and occasional smiles began to replace his perpetual wariness. Mason enrolled him in the community college in Bozeman, making the 45-minute drive each day without complaint. Noah chose courses in design and fashion, his notebook gradually filling with sketches of Western-inspired clothing with modern twists. One afternoon in late February, Mason took Noah to a place he hadn't visited since Andrew died, a secluded canyon near the Gallatin River, where towering pines created a natural cathedral. They hiked in silence, snow crunching beneath their boots. When they reached a clearing overlooking the river, Mason stopped. "Andrew and I discovered this place during our first summer together," he said quietly. "Called it our cathedral. After the accident, I couldn't bear to come back." He took a deep breath, vapor clouding in the cold air. "You're the first person I've brought here since you." Noah stood silently beside him, understanding the significance. "Tell me about him," he said softly. For the first time in 3 years, Mason spoke freely about Andrew, how they met at a rodeo, how Andrew's laugh could fill a stadium, how they'd planned to build a life together. As words spilled out, Mason felt a weight lifting from his chest, the grief transforming from a sharp, cutting pain into something softer, more bearable. "After he died, my parents said it was God's punishment," Mason admitted. "Said if I'd chosen a different path, he'd still be alive." Noah's face darkened. "My dad said something similar when he kicked me out. That being gay was a choice I made to hurt them." They stood together, two souls wounded by the same cruel misunderstanding. "They were wrong," Mason said firmly, "about both of us." March arrived with unexpected challenges. Mason was repairing a fence when a sleek black SUV pulled up the driveway. A tall, stern-faced young man stepped out, the same jawline as Noah, the same green eyes, but none of the gentleness. "I'm looking for my brother," he stated without preamble. "Noah Reynolds." Mason straightened, sensing danger. "And you are Josh Reynolds. Our parents sent me to bring him back." Mason positioned himself between Josh and the house. "Back to the people who threw him out in winter," Josh's face hardened. "To a program that can help him. Our church has a retreat for those struggling with inappropriate attractions. Our father is willing to welcome him home once he's completed it." Mason felt cold fury rise within him. Noah isn't struggling with anything except the trauma of being abandoned by people who should have loved him unconditionally. "You don't understand our family or our faith," Josh countered. "Noah needs guidance, not enablement." "What Noah needs," Mason said evenly, "is acceptance, and he's found it here." Josh's composure cracked slightly. "You have no right. I have every right to protect someone in my care from harm." Mason interrupted. "Even if that harm comes dressed as salvation." Josh stared at him, then glanced toward the house where Noah now stood in the doorway, watching. Something unreadable passed across Josh's face. "This isn't over," he said finally. "Our parents won't give up on saving his soul." "Tell them his soul is just fine," Mason replied. "It's their hearts that need saving." After Josh left, Noah was quiet for days. Mason didn't push, knowing that healing followed its own timeline. Instead, he taught Noah about the history and struggles of LGBTQ+ people in America, from Stonewall to marriage equality, and how rural communities like theirs often lag behind in acceptance. "When I was your age in the 90s, there were no rainbow pins or pride flags in Montana," Mason explained one evening. "You either hid who you were or you left. That's why what you're doing, just being yourself, openly matters so much. By April, Noah had secured a part-time job at a coffee shop in Bozeman, started making friends at school, and even began saving money. Mason watched his transformation with pride, but also with a growing awareness of his own feelings that both exhilarated and terrified him. On a particularly stormy night, when power lines went down across the county, they sat by the fireplace, the ranch house illuminated only by candlelight. Noah, wrapped in a blanket, asked the question Mason had been dreading. "Do you think you'll ever love someone again after Andrew?" Mason stared into the flames, choosing his words carefully. "For a long time, I thought that part of me died with him. I didn't want to feel anything, it hurt too much." He paused, feeling a truth rising to the surface. "But lately, I've started to wonder if maybe my heart isn't as dead as I thought it was." Noah's eyes reflected the dancing firelight as they sat together. Two souls gradually finding their way back from darkness, unaware that the greatest challenges and joys still lay ahead. Summer blossomed across Montana, painting Sullivan Ranch in vibrant greens and wildflower hues. 6 months had passed since that snowy Christmas Eve when Mason found Noah digging through trash, desperate and alone. The transformation was remarkable in both of them. Noah had filled out, his once gaunt face now healthy and often smiling. His confidence grew daily in his college classes, at his job, and around the ranch. Mason, too, had changed. The hollow-eyed rancher who had moved through life like a ghost had been replaced by a man who laughed again, who made plans beyond the next day, who noticed sunsets and birdsong. The ranch itself reflected their renewal fences mended, buildings freshly painted, and Noah's vegetable garden thriving beside the house. One particularly golden evening in June, they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the distant mountains in shades of purple and gold. Thunder grazed peacefully in the nearest pasture, occasionally looking up as if checking that they were still there. "Do you ever think about fate?" Noah asked, breaking the comfortable silence between them. Mason considered the question, rolling it around like a smooth stone. "Before I found you, I was just existing, going through the motions. I convinced myself I was fine, but I wasn't living. I was hiding." He paused, thinking about Andrew, about the life they'd planned that had been cut short. "When Andrew died, I thought that was it for me. I thought my chance at happiness died with him. But maybe this was always part of some bigger plan. Maybe I needed to know what it was like to lose everything so I could help you rebuild your life." Noah turned to look at him, his green eyes luminous in the fading light. "You did more than help me rebuild. You gave me a foundation." He hesitated, then added softly, "I used to think I was being punished for being gay. Now I know I was just finding my way to where I belonged." The words hung between them, weighted with unspoken feelings that had been growing for months. The next morning, they drove into Pinecrest for supplies. Noah had redesigned the Sullivan Ranch logo, incorporating subtle rainbow elements into the traditional cattle brand. Mason had it printed on new business cards, and Noah was proudly handing them out to local businesses. At Thompson's General Store, Frank's face darkened when they entered. "Sullivan," he acknowledged curtly. His gaze shifted to Noah, dismissive and cold. "Heard you've been flaunting your lifestyle all over town." Mason felt Noah stiffen beside him. "We're just living our lives, Frank," Mason replied evenly. "Same as anyone." "Not the same," Frank snorted. "Some folks in town are saying the Sullivan place isn't what it used to be, saying maybe they should take their business elsewhere." "Anyone who can't accept us doesn't deserve our beef," Mason said, his voice steady. "Or our money." He placed his items on the counter. "We'll take these, and then we'll be on our way." Frank rang them up in tense silence. As they turned to leave, he called out, "You two make me sick, parading around like there's nothing wrong with what you're doing." Several customers turned to stare. Noah's face flushed with shame, but instead of hurrying out as he once might have done, Mason took a deep breath and turned back. With deliberate calm, he reached for Noah's hand. "There is absolutely nothing wrong with caring for someone," he said, voice clear enough for everyone to hear. "And I care about Noah more than I've cared about anyone in a long time." The store fell silent. Mason gently tugged Noah's hand. Come on, we're done here. Outside in the summer sunshine, Noah stopped abruptly. You just, you just told everyone. Mason's heart pounded. Had he overstepped? I'm sorry if that made you uncomfortable, but I'm not ashamed of how I feel about you. Noah's eyes widened. How you feel about me? Mason hadn't planned it to have this conversation in the middle of Main Street, but sometimes courage arrived unexpectedly. Noah, I think I'm falling in love with you. I've been fighting it because I'm older, because you came to me for help, not romance. But today when Frank looked at you that way, I couldn't stay silent anymore. Noah stood motionless, stunned by the admission. Then slowly a smile spread across his face. I've been in love with you for months, he whispered. I just never thought you could feel the same way. As the summer sun bathed them in golden light, Mason leaned down and gently pressed his lips to Noah's. The kiss was both an end and a beginning, the end of their loneliness and the beginning of a future neither had dared to imagine. That evening, as they sat together on the porch swing, Noah's head resting on Mason's shoulder, his phone rang. He checked the screen, his body immediately tensing. It's my mom, he said, voice tight with anxiety. With Mason's supportive nod, Noah answered. His mother's voice was strained, apologetic. His father had suffered a heart attack. It wasn't critical, but it had been serious enough to shake him. They wanted Noah to visit. This could be a trap, Mason warned after Noah hung up. A way to get you back to that program your brother mentioned. Noah nodded, worrying his bottom lip. But what if it's not? What if this is my chance to face them as who I really am? Not as the scared kid who got thrown out, but as someone who knows his worth. He looked up at Mason. Will you come with me to Portland? Mason hesitated only briefly before nodding. Wherever you need to go, I'll be right beside you. As they made plans for the journey, Mason realized how far they had both come. The broken rancher and the discarded son had found in each other not just healing, but strength to face the past, to claim their truth, and to love without apology. That night, standing in the doorway of what was now their bedroom, Mason watched Noah sleeping peacefully. Love, he realized, wasn't just about passion or companionship. It was about creating safe harbors for each other in a world that could be unkind. It was about building something beautiful from what had been broken. And it was about having the courage to open your heart again, even when you thought it was sealed forever. The 12-hour drive from Montana to Portland stretched before them like a journey between worlds. Mason's Ford F-150 ate up the miles as Noah grew increasingly quiet, his anxiety palpable in the confined space. He hadn't set foot in his hometown since that winter night his father had cast him out. Now, returning not as a penitent son, but as a young man in love with another man. Noah faced his greatest test of courage. We can turn around any time, Mason reassured him, reaching across the console to squeeze his hand. You don't owe them this visit. Noah shook his head. I need to do this. Not for them, for me. The Reynolds family home sat nestled in a neat Portland suburb, its manicured lawn and white trim projecting an image of perfect Christian domesticity. Noah's mother answered the door, her face a complex map of emotions: relief, shame, uncertainty. She hugged her son stiffly, then regarded Mason with wary politeness. Your father's resting upstairs, she said softly. Josh is with him. The atmosphere inside was suffocating with unspoken judgments. Family photos lined the walls, Noah noticeably absent from the most recent ones. Bible verses on decorative plaques offered silent reproach. Mason felt Noah's hand trembling in his as they climbed the stairs to the master bedroom. Pastor Reynolds lay propped up against pillows, his once commanding presence diminished by illness. Josh stood protectively at his bedside, his expression hardening when Mason entered the room. But it was the father's reaction that surprised them all, tears welling in his eyes at the sight of his youngest son. Noah, he whispered, voice raspy. You came. Noah stepped forward cautiously. How are you feeling, Dad? Better now. The pastor's gaze shifted to Mason, then back to Noah. Your mother says you're living on a ranch in Montana. Yes. With Mason, he took me in when I had nowhere to go. A heavy silence followed, broken only by the soft beeping of the heart monitor beside the bed. Then, unexpectedly, Pastor Reynolds extended a trembling hand towards his son. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since this happened," he said, gesturing weakly to his chest. "About what matters, about mistakes." He drew a labored breath. "I was wrong, Noah. I let my fear and my rigid interpretation of faith blind me to what should have mattered most, my love for my son." Noah stood frozen, unable to process the words he'd never expected to hear. Josh shifted uncomfortably by the window, his face a mask of conflicted emotions. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Pastor Reynolds continued. "I don't deserve it, but I want you to know that I'm sorry, truly sorry." That evening, while Noah spent time with his mother, Mason found himself alone with Josh in the backyard. The tension between them was palpable until Josh finally broke the silence. "You really love him, don't you?" he asked, not meeting Mason's eyes. "With all my heart." Mason replied simply. Josh nodded, then confessed in a whisper what Mason had suspected, that his zealousness came from his own suppressed feelings, his own fear of being different in a family where conformity was salvation. "I don't know how to be as brave as Noah," Josh admitted, "or as true to myself." "Start by being kinder to yourself," Mason advised gently. "The rest will follow." The visit lasted 2 days, not enough to heal years of hurt, but sufficient to plant seeds of reconciliation. Noah's mother promised to visit Montana, a tentative bridge across the chasm that had divided them. Back at Sullivan Ranch, the Montana summer welcomed them home with open skies and the sweet scent of wildflowers. A week later, on the anniversary of Andrew's death, Mason organized a small ceremony by their special canyon. Bill and Tom came, as did several supportive neighbors and friends from Bozeman. They shared stories of Andrew, honoring his memory while celebrating the love that had blossomed in its wake. "Andrew would have loved you," Mason told Noah as they stood by the river. "He believed in second chances." As autumn approached, their little community grew. Mason and Noah started a support group for rural LGBTQ+ youth, offering the ranch as a safe gathering place. When Frank Thompson attempted to organize opposition to their meetings, he found himself outnumbered by supporters, including Bill Parker, who stood on Main Street declaring, "I didn't fight in Vietnam, so people could deny others the right to be themselves." Thanksgiving brought an unlikely gathering to Sullivan Ranch. Noah's mother from Portland, Bill and Tom from next door, Mark and his family, and several young people who had found acceptance in their support group. As they sat around tables in the barn, decorated with twinkling lights and fresh pine boughs, Mason marveled at the family they had created, not defined by blood, but by love and acceptance. Later that night, as the first snow of winter began to fall, Mason led Noah to the ranch entrance. There, a new sign gleamed in the moonlight: Sullivan Reynolds Ranch, where everyone is welcome. "Oh, what do you think?" Mason asked nervously. Noah's eyes shimmered with tears of joy. "It's perfect." Mason dropped to one knee in the gathering snow, pulling out a simple silver band. "Noah Reynolds, you came into my life on the darkest night, and you brought back the light. Will you build this future with me? Officially, will you marry me?" As Noah's joyful yes echoed across the ranch, Mason realized they had come full circle. Exactly 1 year ago, two broken souls had found each other in the cold Montana night. Now they stood together, whole and hopeful, ready to face whatever came next together. Have you ever experienced a moment when what seemed like an ending became the most beautiful beginning? Share your story in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to Heart Stories for more tales of love, courage, and second chances that remind us all sometimes the families we choose become the greatest blessings of all.